Welcome to Animated Tops and Flops, where we dive into the best and worst episodes of your favorite animated series. My name is Alyssa.
And my name is Janice. We are voice actors who love cartoons, so come nerd out with us as we dive into our first season with The Simpsons. On this episode, we are going to be discussing our top, which is Season 6, Episode 25, Who Shot Mr. Burns?
Part 1.
Excellent.
Yes. And our flop is going to be Season 18, Episode 18, The Boys of Bummer.
Womp womp. A true womp womp, but we'll get there.
A true womp womp, indeed.
Yikes. Okay.
Yeah. So as always, we like to start with the people that made this episode happen, writers, director. So Janice, if you would be so kind as to tell us who directed this fine episode of Who Shot Mr. Burns?
Oh, yes. So Jeffrey Lynch of The Muppets and Ted's Excellent Adventures directed this episode. And I gotta say, I don't want to jump too far ahead, but I'm just so excited because, I mean, this is good storytelling. This is like peak Simpsons, just excellent, like very, very well done. So I can't wait to dive in. And would you like to talk to us about the writers?
Oh my God, I'd love to talk about the writers. So the two writers on this episode are going to be Bill Oakley and Josh Weinstein. Bill Oakley is best known for The Simpsons. He's written about 36 episodes, but he's also written 13 episodes of Portlandia, which I think is just hilarious because those are two very, very different shows. Mostly because one is animated and one is not. But, you know, they do feature comedians, so I feel like he brings a lot of that into this episode. And Josh Weinstein wrote 50 episodes of Disenchanted. And I don't know for sure if that's all of the episodes, but it is a good chunk, and it makes sense because it's the same creator for both shows, The Simpsons and Disenchanted. So that does actually make a lot of sense. And he also wrote, weirdly enough, 36 episodes for The Simpsons. So both writers are tied for the amount of episodes that they worked on.
Dang, that is impressive. That is absolutely impressive. I mean, I could not imagine being on a show and creating this world for 35, 36 episodes. That's insane.
I mean, and this specifically this show, The Simpsons, has been running for how many years now?
That is a good question. I mean, I have the Googles in front of me.
Get them Googles, girl.
Oh, yeah.
I want to guess. I want to say 38. No, it has to be less than me. And I'm 33. So I'm going to say 32. Wait, oh my God, what is it?
Okay. The first episode aired December 17th, 1989.
It's older than me.
It's older than me.
Oh my God. It makes me feel a little bit better because, you know, we are older than Google. So The Simpsons being older than us makes me feel good.
You know, I love that and I hate that at the same time.
Let's get into this episode. Janice, would you like to give us a short recap about Mr. Burns Part 1?
You know what? Absolutely, I would. So Mr. Burns Part 1 starts out with oil being found in Springfield Elementary School. And basically, like, Principal Chalmers comes into Skinner's office and is like, oh, what are we going to do with all of this money that we're going to make for this school? And he's like, Skinner's like, oh, well, you know, we could set up kids' college funds. And they both laugh and they're like, never mind. And they start taking requests of like what the teachers want. And it's just a hilarious montage of like these ridiculous things. Like Willie wants a crystal bucket for him mopping and whatnot. That's how the episode starts. But Mr. Burns, he gets his eye on Springfield Elementary and the fact that they struck oil and basically gets ahead of the game and extracts it before them. And he ruins the town with his fracking. So everyone's like really pissed at Mr. Burns. And basically a town hall meeting is organized because they're like, okay, you know, a lot of people are really pissed at Mr. Burns. Everyone's stroking their guns, mob mentality style. And the episode ends, long story short, with Mr. Burns getting shot.
Bum, bum, bum.
but he pissed off so many people, and you just follow like how he's been pissing off everyone throughout this entire episode. Like Homer, I just think has one of the most iconic plot lines of The Simpsons, where Mr. Burns cannot remember his name, and it just drives him nuts. You know, he ends up closing Moe's Tavern because he's fracking next to it. So, you know, Moe is pissed, and he stole this, you know, this life-changing event from the school by stealing their oil. So, uh, Principal Skinner and the teachers are pissed. So everybody's pissed at Mr. Burns.
And let's not forget that he hurt Santa's little helper.
He did! Yes, with his fracking. Completely destroyed the treehouse, and Santa's little helper was brutally injured. Bart was injured. It was catastrophic. It was really catastrophic. So
Terrible. I am a big fan of the chalkboard gags in The Simpsons, and I know that like later in the series they stopped doing them, which is like horrible.
I know, it's
they
so
focus
sad.
so heavily on the couch gags, and like some of them are okay, but I feel like the chalkboard gag is just like so niche and so fast that it's like it's way better in my opinion. But this one does have a chalkboard gag because it is earlier in the series, and the gag is this is not a clue ... or is it? And I just love that it sets you up for the kind of episode that this is, because just by itself you're like, well, that's weird, that doesn't make any sense at all. But the more you get into the episode, you're like, oh, but was it a clue?
I mean, they just think of every detail, you know? And these early episodes, that's why they're just so special, because nothing like this was done before, you
Yeah,
know? And it was
truly,
just
this
fantastic.
show when it started was one in a million, and it still has a really, really warm place in people's hearts that have started with it. But because of all these other animated adult TV shows that have come out, it's starting to like slowly move into the background of adult animation, which is really sad, truly. But there's a reason for it, and if our listeners, you, pick up on it as the season of this podcast progresses, you'll notice that the lower rated episodes are indeed in the later seasons.
And we will begin to learn why as we go on.
Yes, we will. We'll all learn together.
We shall. Oh, we shall. Okay, so an interesting fact about this episode is when Homer shouts the F word, it is censored by the church organ playing an F minor chord, and I just thought that was so funny. Again, going back to like, they think of everything. The details.
Because like, who's gonna know that except people that, you know, have that ear for music? They're gonna be like, how hilarious, that's an F chord.
Oh yeah.
And weirdly enough, that's the first time anyone has sworn in front of Flanders in this entire show so far.
Oh, that's great. We love us some Flanders. I mean, what an incredible character.
Ugh, Flanders, there's something, yeah, you're right. He's so wonderful.
Okay, so what are some of your favorite moments or weird things that you've noticed throughout this episode?
Oh my God, Janice, I have to talk to you. I have to ask you if you know the answer to this question. Why in God's green earth did Mr. Burns dress as Jimbo to infiltrate Springfield Elementary?
Like, I would think maybe it's because he was the only one who would fit, or that's the only person whose clothes he would fit into, and probably like paid him off. Because you think like Nelson is too short and stocky. Yeah. Kearney, he's too big. Like Jimbo is he's pretty lean.
That's a really good point.
Yeah.
That actually makes a lot of sense. Yeah, because I mean, if the idea was that he's supposed to dress as somebody that goes to that school, no one else is tall enough.
Yeah, but also, why would he think that he would be mistaken for a teenager?
Right? He could have been anybody, and he's like, I'm gonna pretend to be an elementary school kid.
Oh my God, but he can't leave anywhere without Smithers. I mean, Smithers is just chasing him after, like, oh no, sir.
Smithers is his shadow.
Yes. But I gotta say, in this episode, I do respect that even Smithers had a breaking point with Mr. Burns and finally, you know, got a backbone and stood up to him. I mean, it ruined him. Like, he was, watching reruns of some like old show and drinking a lot, but still, I mean, he stood up for himself.
Yeah.
I was like, go Smithers, you know?
Yeah, there are little moments throughout this series where like he does stand up for himself. He eventually like, kind of goes back, but it's nice to see him stand up for himself because so often we are the little guys in that situation, and so to see that on television is like very empowering.
It is. It is. And it's just nice to see Smithers in a different light because we
Mhm.
only get the doting assistant,
Right.
that's just
And
ass kissing always. And
there is something like so charming about that. But like just Smithers. Like if somebody else were doing it in real life, I'd be like, "Ugh, it's a little cringe." But
yeah,
for some reason with Smithers and Burns, it's very cute to watch.
yeah,
Yeah.
it is a very one-sided romantic relationship.
I would consider it a romantic relationship.
It
I do.
is
Yeah.
one-sided, but romantic
There.
nonetheless.
Nonetheless. Do you have like a favorite quote from this episode?
Oh my god.
Do you?
Okay.
I'm excited.
Oh my god, I have so many. Okay, so
I mean,
first of all,
it's so good.
it's just so freaking funny. Like, even Lisa was like, yeah, I'd like to, turn him inside out or whatever she says because they hired a famous jazz teacher and, because they didn't have the oil anymore, they had to fire him. And she was like, oh yeah, I'd like to turn him inside out. And we're like, oh dang, Lisa. So we're getting to see like the side, the angry, like the dark side of all these characters, and it's actually what I think what makes the episode fantastic. But one of my favorite quotes is when all of the rats like go into the bar and Mo is just like, all right, everybody, tuck in your socks to your pants. I just think it's so funny. Like, anything like Mo's got some of the best one-liners, and I think he's such a fantastic character for like quick comedic relief. And that cutaway scene was just like, it's gold. It's gold. What are some of your favorite one-liners or moments?
This one line, and I don't know why it got me so good because it's so stupid, but it's when Santa's little helper, right? He's injured. He has a cone on because, he broke his back legs. And he ends up like running out of the house or, rolling out of the house. And grandpa goes, "The lamp's running away." And Bart goes, "That's my dog." And then grandpa goes, "The long lamp."
Oh my god. Poor grandpa.
But I'm just like, that is such a good line.
Just good writing all around this
Truly,
episode.
truly, this episode has some really, really good writing. And oh my god, did you know that when this episode aired, it was the last episode of the season? And so over the summer, they had a contest to see who could figure out who shot Mr. Burns. And they like opened it up to the public, and you could like write in or call in or email in and like try to guess who you thought did it. And nobody got it right.
That's incredible.
I
Okay.
think it's nuts.
So I read that even the writers didn't know what was going on because they had him write multiple endings. So nobody knew which one they would choose until it was aired. So it was like even fun for the writers because they have to like wait and see who did it, you
Oh my
know?
god. Can you imagine writing all those different endings and being like, I can't wait to see which one it is.
I know, like I would be, because back in the day you had to like VHS tape things and you had to do it like live because there was no TiVo back then. You would have to like have recorded that episode and then rewatched it several times again to get like the little clues and everything.
Like the red herring is Homer.
Oh yeah.
And like that's where my money would have been because I'm like, that made this obvious choice.
Mm-hmm. And even
Yeah.
Smithers too was a pretty
Yeah.
good contender. There were some people in there where I was like, okay, Lisa would never kill anybody. Like that's too off.
Or like
Bart,
Barney.
like I don't believe it. Barney, yeah. I was like, why Barney?
Okay, Janice, after everything we've said and we've seen, do you think that this episode deserves the 9.2 rating that it was given on IMDb.com?
Oh hell yeah. It could even be a little bit higher to be honest because the writing is so good and like it's just such an iconic episode. I mean, Homer going nuts, that bird's eye view of him launching at Mr. Burns. I mean, come on. Like, that sticks in my mind. That's something that, like, gives me that pops up in like my strobe light memory, I call it. Just like random thoughts. I call it like strobe light memory. It's like, oh, another thing. Oh, another thing. It's like I just randomly think about that sometimes. It's my, what do you call it? My Roman Empire, if you would.
Oh my God.
Like, it's just so cinematic and it's so well written. And God, why can't you remember his name, Mr. Burns? It's like, it was iconic.
I
Absolutely
agree.
iconic and deserves to be there.
I totally agree. I even agree that this could be higher. I think that this is a really great episode. It's a wonderful whodunit, and I'm like,
Oh, who doesn't love a whodunit?
who doesn't? And also, it was a cliffhanger for the entire season.
Mm-hmm.
So not only that, but like you were left waiting all summer to figure out who actually did it, and it was so well placed in the season, I think, and I think that's also what helped it be as good as it is. All right, we're gonna move on to our flop now.
Wah,
We're,
wah.
we're talking about the Boys of Bummer. And the Boys of Bummer, I know. Listen, okay. We're going to give a little trigger warning on this. This episode focuses a lot on suicide. So just wanted to throw that out there before we started. This episode was rated a 5.9 on
Deserving.
IMDb.com.
I would even put it lower.
I'd put it lower. I truly would.
I mean, it was too dark. Like,
It was
it just
really dark. Give us a recap. Give us a recap.
what happened was there was this like baseball game and Bart is like doing really well and he like catches like a home run, uh fly ball, and like yay, everything's great. And then they go to like the playoffs of the game. The same kind of like hit comes by him, a fly ball. He's in the outfield, he's about to catch it and he misses, and then he stumbles and he kicks it and he completely ruins it. Like he ruins the game, right? They lost. It's an epic lose. It's an epic loss, and basically the town turns against him because they were like, yay, go team, they were all for it. And all of a sudden the entire town just turns on him. He runs out of the stadium. Chief Wiggum picks him up and he's like, oh yeah, come on in, and drives him back into the stadium to continue shaming him, which is just awful. And it drives his mental health so poorly that he ends up climbing the water tower and saying, look everybody, I hate myself too, ha 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 ha, and ends up just falling backwards on purpose to, and he is horribly injured. And the town feels really bad, so in order to make it up, they end up doing uh, they basically say, hey, something happened and we have to redo the last inning of the game. They keep going and going and going until he gets it, which is sweet. But at the same time, like, that was a really dark turn of the mob mentality. I mean, there's a lot of dark moments in The Simpsons, but this, I think, with, the attempt and with Bart being such a little boy, like, it rubbed me the wrong way. Like, it just,
Yeah.
and the subplot of,
The subplot.
the subplot didn't do it for me either. It wasn't enough to contrast it. Like, Homer is shopping with Marge at the mall. There's not enough husband chairs. And basically what happens is Homer ends up going to like a Bed Bath & Beyond and falling asleep on a bed. And he ends up becoming a mattress salesman. And he ends up selling a mattress to Reverend Lovejoy. And he hates it. He goes to his house and returns it for some reason. And then he's like, oh, we love your mattress. Can we buy your mattress? And he sells him Marge and his mattress. And their marriage is going great now. They're having great marriage sex, and they're not, Marge and Homer. So they go and attempt to steal it back, and they end up splitting the mattress in half and like sharing it. But it's just, again, it's not enough. Like, as I'm talking about it, I'm like, ugh, like,
I know.
not
It's
excited
icky.
about it.
It's like, I don't know. It felt like trying to like put a band-aid on like a heart attack, and you're like, there you go. And like I want to point out how Springfield is very much mob mentality, be it good or bad.
Oh yeah.
And this episode really this episode is the entire town of Springfield is a mob mentality in this episode, basically. It's crazy how this entire town just goes along with whatever one person says so frequently.
Oh yeah, and especially like because it's sports related and the Olympics are going on right now, I
Mm.
feel like as we're talking, I'm making like probably a very left or right connection. I don't know which direction to go. Like, I mean,
Up, down, whatever.
I feel like I'm making a very like broad reaching connection with this, but because the Olympics are going on right now and there's so much pressure under the Olympics, like
Mm.
it just kind of makes me reflect of how much pressure we put on sports in general and how
Yeah.
much pressure, you know, sports makes you feel.
Yeah.
And that's just, I don't know. It didn't strike a right chord with me.
No, me either. Let's get into who wrote and directed it. I would like to point out that this episode aired in 2007, which is around the time where millennials were truly kind of starting to make an impact in the world, and jokes about self-harm and stuff were becoming incredibly unfunny.
Hmm.
But I feel like because these older people that were writing for The Simpsons were doing so well in the 90s, that they just kept going, and they weren't really with the times, so to speak. They weren't woke. Um, and I think that maybe that's a reason why this episode did as poorly as it did.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. I mean, it is the worst rated episode in the series. Well, it was at the time and
It was,
held that
yeah.
for a very long time afterwards as
Mm-hmm.
well.
Yeah, it only recently kind of jumped up, which is interesting. I'm not entirely sure why.
Yeah, it can't be the subplot, right?
No,
I mean,
I'm
it's not funny enough to.
no, I'm truly curious if there's just worse episodes, and because more episodes were
Mm,
coming out, this episode just kind of started to gain in where it is in percentage wise, because there were so many worse episodes that were coming out.
I mean, that's fair. I mean, if you look at the IMDb rating chart, it dips. I mean, it
Mm,
dips horribly.
bad.
But I mean, I feel like, and we'll get into this later too with some of our later episodes. I know, but
Mm-hmm.
some of these episodes are so celebrity focused instead of them being like the butt of a joke or you know having the plot not center around them.
Yeah.
I think that's what started to really dip it down because people started to say, "Oh, if you've been on The Simpsons, then you made it." And it's like, is that really a great thing for The Simpsons? Because we don't watch
No.
The Simpsons to watch Lady Gaga or Elon Musk like play a character. We don't.
Yeah.
We watch it for Bart, Lisa, Moe,
Yeah.
Flanders.
Right.
Like,
We're here for the family. We've already invested ourselves into this town and this family, and when you start bringing in people from our world, it kind of like loses its charm.
yeah, it really
Yeah,
does.
I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about the writers and directors. We kind of
Okay.
let's
Yes.
bring back. Okay, so the main writers for this episode is going to be Sam Simon and Michael Price. Sam Simon only ever did Simpson stuff, really nothing notable. Michael Price, I believe, is the head writer for F is for Family, or like one of the main writers for F is for Family, which is a newer adult animation. And he did some Lego Star Wars, which is so
Fun.
weird, but I love that, right? And the director, there were two directors on this episode.
Ooh, who are
Yes,
the directors?
it was Mark Kirkland and Rob Oliver, and they've only ever done The Simpsons. They didn't really do anything else or go off to do anything big, and I noticed that that's also a weird. It's a weird correlation between how good and how bad the episode is. The better the episode, the more credits that the director or the writers have. The worse the episode, the less credits, or no credits and just Simpsons credits.
Yeah, that is interesting. I gotta say, some of my most favorite episodes are directed by people who have done other great things. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventures. I mean, come on, like the Muppets, like iconic,
I know.
iconic.
I
People with
know.
a vision, you know?
Do you have any like favorite moments from this episode? I
I
know
gotta
it's
say,
hard.
like, not really. I mean, one of the funnier moments, I guess, is probably just Mrs. Lovejoy, woo 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 woo, like with the mattress. I mean, that's probably, and then bringing Lovejoy out as well. Like, I mean, that was a funny gag, but
Yeah.
I really don't have that much to say about this episode. Which is sad, but I mean, it is. That's why
Listen,
it's rated so
yeah,
poorly.
exactly. That's why it's rated poorly. Like, it's really hard to find like good moments in bad episodes. But I think that
Yeah,
if there's like a few good moments, then it's not totally lost. But
yeah. I'm
when
just
it's
a
hard,
diehard
yeah.
fan, Alyssa,
I
and I want to like
know.
everything
I
about it.
know. I
I
get it.
want to give
Listen,
it
once we get
everything.
into Bob's Burgers, you and me, I'm going off. So
Oh
I
yes, oh
get it.
yes. I know. Get ready for season 2.
Season two. Um, I think my favorite moment, because it was just so like weird for Bart, was when was it Kearney, Nelson, and Jimbo do a rendition of Love Stinks called Bart Stinks, and they'll like sing it on the radio, and Bart heard it, and he goes, "Oh, they ruined my favorite song." What 8, 9-year-old boy? What? Their favorite song is Love Stinks? Like that can't be true. But I just thought it was like so random.
Yeah, and like, I mean, if you think from earlier episodes too, like I know these aren't like they don't carry a lot of themselves from like previous episodes. It's not linear, you know? I
No.
understand that. But at the same time, Bart is kind of like a romantic, you know? That's a huge characteristic about Bart. He's passionate about dance and he loves Krusty so much that he like is willing to do anything to get to his show. Like he fell in love with his babysitter. Like, I mean, come on. Like, we can't discount that. I just felt like this
Oh.
was so out of character for Bart, which is why I don't like this episode one bit. It was just way too left field, pun intended, about yeah, about like Bart's personality, It was way too far. Like, I don't know. It didn't hit. It didn't hit.
I think it's super fucking cute that you said Bart's a romantic
He is
because
a
like
romantic. I
because
will
like
die on that hill.
he's just such like a little scamp, and he's always getting into trouble, and for someone to be like he's romantic, I go, "Oh my god, is he?" And like it just
He
changed my
totally
entire
is.
perspective of him. That one sentence that you just said changed my entire perspective of him.
Yes, because I mean, he puts passion behind everything. He's got like dreams and fantasies and they're always like they're never half-assed, you know? So
Mm.
for him to fall so far over here, it just didn't feel right. That's not Bart. That's not the Bart we've known. And
Yeah.
maybe that was the point, but it sure
Mm.
as hell didn't hit. It didn't hit.
It didn't hit. Ugh.
Yeah.
Hurts my
What's got
heart
you thinking that he's a
more.
romantic now? I'm curious. Like, what are you thinking? What are you brewing over
I
there?
mean, you're right. It's usually like very small bits in episodes. It's how much he loves Santa's Little Helper. It's how much he does have his dreams, and his dreams are big, and he wants to, live out these big dreams. I don't know, I just never really put that word in association with Bart. But then you said it and it made sense.
Yeah. When they do flash forwards, like, when they do
Mm.
flash into the future, though, they paint him as like,
He's so, like
it's very
horrible.
consistent that they paint him like as a deadbeat,
Yeah.
kind of like another version of Homer in a way. And I
Mm-hmm.
don't like that. Like, I really wish they would kind of lean into, you know, Bart's romantic side and whatnot. And like maybe like
Mm.
life isn't how he thought it would be as well,
Yeah.
but at the same time, like don't let him lose that.
I wonder if that correlates with later seasons, because, and maybe I'm wrong here, but I feel like in the later seasons where they like their ratings really start to dip, we don't really get to see that side of Bart anymore. We don't get to see him being a romantic and like doing what he loves and really fighting for that. And that's usually also when we see him in the future being a deadbeat. And I wonder if that's something that the writers kind of forgot about.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what made them made that choice, but I'm curious.
Yeah.
Tag the writers.
Someone tell us. All right. Well, before we end our first episode,
Woohoo!
do you feel I know we kind of already said it, but do you feel like this episode deserves to be where it is? Higher, lower?
I think it deserves to be lower. There are other episodes that we're going to talk about this season that deserve to be higher than this.
Yeah.
This definitely deserves to be lower.
I think, and originally my thought was it deserves to be lower, but I think it's a good place. I think it's in a good place. Well, thank you so much for sticking around with us as we talked about Who Shot Mr. Burns Part 1 and The Boys of Bummer. If you have any thoughts or arguments, we respectfully ask you to fight us in the comments of our YouTube channel, or you can hit us up on Instagram and TikTok. If you agree, don't agree, we would love to know your thoughts.
Please let us know, and make sure to join us on our next episode where we talk about Who Shot Mr. Burns Part 2 as well.
Lisa with an S.
Catch you soon.
See you next time.
Bye-bye.